All right, good morning, everybody. So we left off yesterday. There was a svara. The reason why I said not ready is because we sort of have to remember the first case. So we had a svara given by Rav. Today we're in the Kuf Yud. This is today Kuf Yud Aleph. So kol habayal al das harishonim hubayal. So that was said regarding a katana. The reason why her marriage doesn't become all of a sudden chal, even as he marries her as a katana midrabanan, and then even if they have a bia after she's a gedayla, Shmuel had this chiddush of that she's still not married because why? Because he said that the svara of kol habal al das kedushin rishon hubah. So he says whatever he acquired originally with the original kedushin, that was he was boil her with. He wasn't boil her additionally to be kana her now as a gedayla.
Just to remind real quick, the meeting before she comes in, what when do you have to leave?
So we saw that miyun is possible as a katana because we had a svar that a woman could do miyun 4 or 5 times.
She needs 12 and a half. It's not
or 12 and a half, yeah. But it seems that also there's a continuous point in time until the marriage is secured. Even after she was 14, if the marriage was never secured, right? If the marriage was never secured, right? So that was a chiddush according to Shmuel. If she was never boyal, then it's still possible. So that was like a big chiddush, right? See, it's funny. A lot of things aren't clear when you go back and do the sugyas because the Gemara is never clear, and the Gemara is sort of timeless. Like Breira, right? There's never a decision on does Breira work it out? There's always a machlokes. Even if we go to 3 years, it's not like we figured it out last time. There's no Breira, right? So now the Gemara says. So we are on Vaha Pligi, third line, last word. So Vaha Pligi Bachad Zimna. Didn't already Shmuel have this machlokes of kolabal al das kedushin rishonim? But where do you see that? Itzmar kidsha al tanai, person mekadesh, a woman al tanai. The concept stop, and then he marries her without basically fulfilling the condition. So Rabba Matzika had a get, and then she goes off, and so from this individual, so she will go ahead and need a get. Right, in order to, because basically by the fact that he took her in marriage, it must be he gave up on the Tanai. Shmuel Amar answered him in a get, and Shmuel says, no, you don't need get. And Rav answered him in a get, Kevan din asba achli Tanai. So Rav says he needs to get why? Because since he married her, he did the Nisuan. So therefore he was Meichel on the Tanai, he gave up on it, he didn't care about it. Shmuel Amar ain't it tzricha min a get. You don't need a get. Why? So whoever is Baal Das Rishonim, so therefore it goes back and says, well, since the kedusha was never chal, so therefore this is also not going to be chal. So why do you need this machlokes in 2 cases? So tzricha. So you need in both cases. Because if we have it over there in the case of the Tanai, so since he's Baal, then he was Michael on the Tanai. But in this case, the case we had in the Gemara, which you saw on Friday, right? So therefore, since he took Nesuin, right, he didn't care about the Tanai, right? He didn't care about Baha, but in that case, right? But in our case, where there was Bia, right? Maybe Shmuel would agree that the Bia was kind of Vitmar Baha, Kamar Shmuel. Maybe only in this case, Shmuel would say that's not about Baha. But over there, he'll say maybe he was Michael Tanai, therefore it's 3. Therefore, we need both cases. Now, and does Rav hold to the svara that dafka, if there's bia after she turns into a gedola, good morning, and Kuf Yud Amud Aleph, that dafka she does bia, that's when the marriage is now secured midaraisa, despite the fact that she was married off by her mother or brother as a katana. Right? It was a ma'isa where the girl was married off when she was a katana. Then she got older, and then she was going ahead and she was basically sitting on her basically getting ready. She was at Teres Ayala, getting ready to get married. Right, or she was on the seat of there, and somebody else came and grabbed her and married her. Rav Bruna, Rav Hanan, Tamid, the Rav Habihas, and they were over there. They didn't need require a get to the last one. In other words, basically, she's considered to be married to the first guy, and the second guy came to try to chap her away is nothing. So Amara Papa Benaresh Minsev Nasive Bahadar Musvi. No, over there the reason why is not because there wasn't bia. There was bia. Usually over there they do bia, they have Nisuin, and then they have the festive Suda. And so therefore that's the reason in that case. So he said Bahadar Musvi Ave Karsai. Then they bring her to this Ave Karsai, right, to the to the wedding hall to go ahead and do their chassan. Ravashi Amar, who also shelo hugan, right? Since this guy, right, the second guy, he came in and he did something shelo hugan, right? He did something that was inappropriate when I was supposed to get married to somebody else, and he tried to chop her up first. So therefore, the Rabbanan acted him shelo hugan. They said even though they were not boil, right? Nevertheless, we'll say his marriage did not work. The second guy's marriage did not work. And therefore, the Rabbanan were uprooted any kedushin from him. Similarly, Ravina Ravashi, okay, that's okay. If you say, okay, the money retroactively that he gave her is not Kesef Kedushin, basically, we'll say was Hefker. So Kaddish Rabia Mai. Well, what if he was Makadish or Rabia, the second guy? So Bukhari should be married to her. So Quran says no, Shavina Rabban, Rabia so Bilas nos. They equated the Bia with the second guy to be a Bias nos, and therefore was not done to acquire her, and therefore there would be no get needed for him. And Amra,
with the second guy?
yes, that was right. In other words, yes, when he was kind to her, he tried to do it that way. And the Rabbanan said even that doesn't work. She was with the first guy because since he acted shelo kuhugan, will act shelo, inappropriately with him. And Amar Rav Yidam Shmuel, yeah, yeah.
What did he do?
So she was married off as a katana to somebody else.
What did he do?
Yeah, so even if he took her, right? So even
if he did the suing,
right, even if he did Nisuin, so let's say the Nisuin does not work
because she was married.
Because she was already Mekadesh as by her mother 4 years earlier.
Okay, all right. So this whole story here that we just said at the end that because he did something improper.
So that was the right. So so there are two stories there. One was no, she was already
right
Nisuin with the first guy. That was the first day. The second was no, even the Nisuin didn't happen with the first guy.
Right.
Only the second guy. Since he acted appropriately, she was supposed to get married to this guy, and he basically seduced her and says, "Hey, come with me. I'll give you a better life," and blah blah blah. So therefore, since he acted appropriately, so we're going to also say that your kedushin didn't work. The Rabbanan have that power to say that kedushin didn't work.
The power that they have.
That's the power that they have.
Wow.
And even to the power that not just kesef, because that's easy, because you say bezdin hefker based on hefker, you can just say the money was zero, and therefore there was no kedushin. You can even say that if there was mekadesh or with bia, they would still do nothing. And Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, halacha ki Rabbi Eliezer, v'chein Amar Rabbi Eliezer, v'chein Amar Rabbi Elazar, halacha Rabbi Eliezer. The halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer in our previous Mishnah. What? We teach you the Rumiyun, right? We teach you the Rumiyun in order for, I guess, the other sister who fell to you. Fine. Na'im Mishnah, Zakti Mishnah. Me, Shahaya, Nasu, we're going to have very similar cases the next hour or so. Me, Shahaya, Nasu, Lishtei, Yisaimus, Katanas. So a guy was married to two Yisaimus Katanas, two orphan girls, both married off by their mothers. Kedushin derabban. We got to remember this. Umeis, and he dies. Since they have the same type of Kedushin derabbanan, due to the fact that their mother married them off. Therefore, if the brother does bia or chalitza with either one of them, the tzara is good to go. So to a cheresh, even if you have a deaf mute who's, let's say, the age of 20.
Even considering the fact that both girls are married to Rabbanan.
Yes. So it's the same type of derabbanan. And therefore, if the one is married, they're both married. So therefore, if I can do chalitza even with one, then the other one falls off, right? The Gemara will soon ask about yibum, why the yibum works. So too, the same level as a girl gets married off is also a deaf mute. The deaf mute is 25 years old and she marries a man. Since she's not a bardas, therefore her kedushin is also derabbanan. So a man marries two deaf mutes and he dies, and they both fall to the brother. Then he can do yibum chalitza with either one of them. Now. Katana v'chereshes. You have a katana chereshes. Ein bias achas mehen poteres tzarasa. the bia of one of them does not pater the tzara. Now we'll soon see, or it will be mentioned that there is no chalitza by a cheresh, right? They can't do chalitza, so the evil would be the only possibility. But nevertheless, so that would not work.
Katana means that Yisoma.
When we say here katana means yisoma, because otherwise her kedusha is midoraisa. Because if her father marries her off, it's midoraisa. Now, pikachas v'chereshes. So let's say you have a regular woman and a deaf mute, and they're married to a person, and then the guy dies. So bios pikachas pateres hachereshes. If the husband does yibum, or the brother does yibum with the bekach, right, pikachas, then the chereshes is done. She's good to go. Because whatever zika there was, it was only midrabanan, and therefore it for sure works from the deraisa that was fulfilled. But if the guy does yibum with the chareshes, then there's not pater the bikachas. Now, gedolah b'ktana. What about a gedolah b'ktana? Also, once again, you got a deraisa and a rabbanan marriage to the guy. So bia hagadolah b'teres haktana. So the bia of the gedolah will be pater the ktana. However, maybe as haktana b'teres gedolah, the bia with the ktana will not pater the gedolah. Why? Because that zika was only midrabanan. Therefore, he fulfilled the yibum only midrabanan. Therefore, the zika midoraisa would still be remaining for the gedolah. So that's because that was pikachas v'chereshus. In other words, one was the contrast, right. So if she's a deaf mute, then pikachas means someone who's not deaf mute, and katana, the opposite is the gedolah. Right, yeah, it could have said, but that's right. But it's the same type of person, a regular woman, who was able to go ahead and marry herself off. Fine. Zak the Gemara. The chareshes bas chalitzi is the chareshes, because we said over there in the beginning. So do by chareshes we said obiasa chilutzasa shachzman poter sarasa. So the chareshes bas chalitza he. If a cheresh does chalitza, or chalitza is done to a chereshes, or if chaletzas min a katan, or chalitza from a katan, the brother is a katan. Chalitzasa psula. The chalitza does not work. So we see chalitza doesn't work by chareshes. Amarav Gidol, Amarav Abia was going on the bia. That which is the chareshes. So the bia would pater the tzara. And Rav Amar afilu tema chalitza. Even say chalitza kan bechareshes meikara kan bepikachas ve'achaka niskarsha. Two different cases. One is if a woman gets married to the brother as a deaf mute, right, and then the guy dies, and then his chalitza done as a deaf mute. That's one category. The other category is the guy married a regular woman, right? And then at some point she became a deaf mute, and the guy dies, and now chalitza is done. So what's the svara, right? Now, chereshes meikara, if she was deaf mute, let's say from birth, ki heichi dal hachi nafak. So he say, right? So in this case, if the woman's chereshes meikara, ki heichi dal hachi nafak. Right, the same way that she came in, she's going out. Yeah. So whatever way he was able to kaina her, so therefore the chalitza also works in the same way. So therefore, there's more of a reason to say that the chalitza works with a woman who is a chareshes meikar. However, bikachas v'chag, right? The imakva ba'kariya. But however, if she came in as a regular woman, then she came a deaf mute. So therefore, the chalitza will not work because the fact that she was not able to do any of the reading, right, would passel, we mentioned that there is reading from the parshas and the chalitza, that would be ma'akev.
So she was a pikachas when she got married. That's the bottom line.
She was a pikachas, yes.
She can't come out the same way.
She can't come out the same way, right? But that which you said, chalitza with patat tzara must be a chalitza chereshes meikara. Now, Eisvei Abaye says chereshes meikara bas chalitzi. Chereshes meikara is a bas chalitza. But now we're doing the Mishnah Shnei Achen. You have two brothers. Echad b'kech v'echad cheresh. One is a regular person, a regular boy, right? Regular man. One is a cheresh. Nisun l'shtei nachriyos. Achas b'kechas v'achas chereshes. So each one is also married to one of their like. The pikach is married to pikachas. The cheresh is married to chereshes. So what happens here? So, and then they married two nachres. Meis cheresh bal chereshes. So if the cheresh who was married, now his marriage basically only derabban. Meis cheresh bal chereshes. So ma yaseh pikach bal pikach. So what does the other brother do as regular marriage? Koines. right? He goes ahead and he can't do chalitza, right? He doesn't say do chalitza. It says he has to do yibum, right? Because remember, they're not sisters at all, right? So he can do yibum. And if he wants to go ahead and divorce her afterwards, he can do that. Meis bikeach, if the bikeach dies.
In the case of the woman who was Bikachas when she got married, but later became.
Well, we have to see what case we're talking about. We don't know what we're talking about yet. It doesn't describe yet. We're going to try and learn from the Brisa, right? So all it said over there was that that he wasn't able to do chalitza with the chareshes. It just says he has to marry her, and if he wants, he can divorce her afterwards. He has to do yibum with her, and then divorce her afterwards if he wants. That's what it says so far. It didn't give chalitza as an option to the chareshes. We'll soon see what cases it's talking about. Now,
Well, it mentioned a case where a woman later became.
that was earlier. That was the chiluk. That was no.
Well-
You're not speaking from this Bryce. This mission doesn't say that.
Right.
This mission doesn't say that. You're talking about that was our svara we said earlier. We're questioning that svara. We're questioning the svara now. That was the chiluk we made earlier. Now we're questioning that svara from this mishnah, but we don't know yet what this mission is describing. Now let's see. Meis bikeach, if the regular brother who is married a regular woman, if he died, so what does the deaf mute brother do who's also married to a deaf mute who was not the sister of this one? So the kaines, he can go ahead and marry her, right? He has to marry her, but he can never divorce her because a cheresh can't go ahead and give a get. He doesn't have das. So my love, what? He has das to do bia, yeah. Yibum, right? So he says, the other. Right. So now, that's the Gemara says, so my love, the chereshes meikara. It says, are we not talking about a case of chereshes meikara, right? And therefore, chereshes meikara, and it says, Victani, kaines, it only says you can do yibum and not chalitza. You just want to say the svara that chereshes meikara, you can do chalitza, right? The kaines in chayleitz lo. So the rest says, no, no, that's not a good proof because we can just say that case talking about when she was married as a bikakas and afterwards she became a deaf mute during the marriage. Fine. Tashma, similar question, similar teres. So shnei achin, pikechim, the suan shtei anachias. If you have two brothers who were both normal and then they married two nachrias, achas bikakas, achas chareshes, and one of them is bikakas, one of them is chareshes. If the regular guy who was married to a chareshes dies, now the chareshes falls to Yibum or Chalitza to the brother. He has to go ahead and marry her. He has to do Yibum. He can't do Chalitza. And if he wants to go ahead and divorce her afterwards, that's fine. And if the one who was married to the regular woman, the regular one falls to Yibum, what can this deaf mute do? What can the brother do? Who is married to the deaf mute? Since he is a pikeach, he can go ahead and do yibum or chalitza to the pikachas. Now, my lab pikeach meikara. So now there's a pikeach, and so by the fact that he's a pikeach meikara, hinami charesh meikara, right? Since he was a pikeach, right, he was always normal. So we'll say that she was always a chareshes. Viktani kaines in chalitza. Right, and therefore it only says do yibum chalitza. So Gemara says no, midiyari who says the same thing. Hakadisa. Maybe each one's separate. He's a pekech forever, but when it comes to the chareshes, maybe we're talking about a case where she came chareshes in the middle. Fine. Eisvei Abaye asks the kasha. Shnei achim pekech echad cheresh. So once again. So two brothers, one was normal, one was a cheresh. And then the normal brother married a bikachas. And then the deaf mute, he married also a woman who was a deaf mute. So meis cheresh val chereshes. So if the deaf mute died, now his wife is deaf mute, fell to even to the brother. Mayes bikach val bikachas. Teitze mishum achazisha. Since they were married to shtei achayas, they're married to sisters. So the deaf mute falls to the brother who has a bona fide marriage to her sister. Therefore, whatever marriage that was, that gets thrown off because of achos isha. She's an erba and she's done. That was easy. Now, meis pikech babikechas. If the brother who is married to the sister died with the bona fide marriage, now she's bona fide falls to yibum or chalitza, but she falls to somebody who was only married midrabanan to her sister. So ma yasa cheresh bal chereshes maitzi as ishto beget. He has to go ahead and divorce his wife because he's only married to his wife midrabanan. The Zika is the Raisa, so he has to divorce his wife. And his brother's wife is Asur Li'elam. right? He can't go ahead and do yibum because she's falling to him, right? While she was really asur midrabanan to him, and also, what was that? Asur, I think. So, yeah, right. Yeah. So now, right. So now we say, now if you're going to say in this case, we're talking about a case of this was, you anticipate the question. Oh, so why doesn't it say you can do chalitza? It must be you can't do chalitza because it was so mimati mapi. How can we say about now we learn in the Mishnah? Same Mishnah is harsha. If a woman became a chereshes, right, nischarsha, after she got married, yaitzi, he's allowed to go ahead and divorce his wife who was a deaf mute. Nishtates, right? If she comes crazy, yaitzi, we don't want him to divorce her.
Doesn't she have to have das in order to be able to accept a get?
No, it can be bal karcha.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
Now, but he has to have das. Right?
Yes,
so, right. So if the shtat has become crazy, then lo yaitzi, we don't want him to go ahead and throw her to the streets because we're afraid what will happen to her. Now, if he becomes a cheresh or a shata lo yaitzi alamis, he can't go ahead and divorce him because he has no das. So what do we see there? So if we're talking, so in this case over here, we see that you can't divorce as the pikeach, right? So it must be the previous case. Right, that it was now as we say this. Now that was cheresh meikara, right? Hinami cheresh meikara, right? So he was also cheresh meikara. Umidachayas cheresh meikara. By the fact that the cases of the sisters we're talking about a cheresh meikara. So to nachrias nami cheresh meikara. So to over here we're talking about also nachrias meikara. With Tanan Gabi nachrias that we just said in this case over here. We just said if they're not related, then the only option is to go ahead and do yibum and not chalitza. So it was quiet, right? Now, as it appears that even in a case of when the charish mikara, right? Also, chalitza is not an option. Only yibum was the option because we just basically proved that all the cases there we're dealing with when it was charishes meikara. And Kiyasa, the Kami, the Rav Yosef, Amarle, my time at Tuesday Miha. Why did you ask in that case to shlug him up? You can say like this: Achayos Kareshes Meikara, Nachrias Pikachas Vechakan is Karshu. Maybe the two cases we want to compare the cases of the Nachrios, the non-related co-wives, to the cases of the were married to sisters. Maybe they're two different cases. Maybe the case indeed of the sisters where they were Kareshes Meikara. But the Nachrios, the other case that we want to go ahead and ask, I was talking about first they started off normal and then they became deaf mutes. Sally boy, rather you should ask for this case. What case? Two brothers who were deaf mutes. They married two sisters that were normal. They married they married two ones that were deaf mutes, or they married two sisters that were achas pikachas v'achas charesha. One was deaf mute, one was not. So too. The other case, when they have the two sisters were chareshas, and the suas l'shneachim v'kirchim, and they married two normal brothers, or l'shneachim v'chareshin, or they married two, or they married two deaf mutes, or the two brothers, l'shneachim v'charesh, or one is bad, one was good. So all these cases of basically two brothers marrying two sisters, and there is one of them or two of them that are, or all four of them, right, that are deaf mutes. They are patras from yibum and chalitza. And if they were not sisters, well,
the wives are sisters,
right? So then they fall off. In other words, whatever marriage was done with the brothers, so they would fall to the same. Therefore, be pater, right? So harei lepatras min chalitza min yibum, right? They don't do chalitza or yibum. And if they are nachrios, and if they're not related, then yichnasu, right? They can go. The other brother can go ahead and marry them. And if he wants to go ahead and divorce, he can divorce him. But it doesn't give an option of chalitza. Now let's examine the case. If we're talking about a case of where they were first good and in the end they became deaf mutes, how can you go ahead and divorce? Well, now we learn. right? Nishtatis, lo yaisi, that we said if they have become crazy, then you can't divorce. And ischare shu nishtata, if he became a cherish or crazy, lo yaisi, he can't go ahead and divorce them, right? Ever. Ella lav acharesh meikara. Rather, we're talking about acharesh meikara. Umidaha charesh meikara. Inhinami charesh meikara. By the fact that the men were charesh meikara, right? So too, because we can't say they became crazy, because then they wouldn't be able to divorce them at all, right? So then it must be that the women were also charesh meikara. The Ketani says it there. No. Therefore, it says it there, and even we're talking about a chesh meikara. It says there the only option was they can go ahead and do yibum and then go ahead and divorce them, but they can only marry nachalitza tiyufta derabba tiyufta. So it's a tiyufta on that svara that we want to say that a deaf mute meikara can go ahead and do chalitza. So there you can stamp your approval. The next time you get to this Gemara, that this is the case that there is no chalitza with a chareshes. Fine. Katana v'chareshes. Let's see that case. So we have the case of katana v'chareshes back in the Mishnah. You have as we're going to be discussing today, a girl, a young girl who was married by her mother, and a chareshes, and a deaf mute. So each of them are married midrabanan, but they're not really the same type of derabanan. One was married off by the mother, the other one doesn't really have das. Now, sorry, just go back to the case, right? They were a person was married to two women, and then he dies, and they fall even to his brother. So that was the case. Now, he found Rav Ada bar Abba and his son-in-law Rav Chana. So he saw them. They were going ahead, and they were, they were teaching a chabura in Pumbedisa. Probably in some they say Hadatan. We're going to the Mishnah. Katana v'chareshes ain't bias achas and pater sarah. So the bia of one of them is not part of the other one. Sahani mili the naflo le miachi pikeach. This is only referring to if they fell from a brother who is a pikeach. Deloya din and ibekana nichale ibecharesh nichale. Only if we're talking about that they fall from a regular brother, and we don't know which one he preferred, right? Which one he preferred. What does that make a difference? So, now if he would want one of their marriages, right? So then that marriage, let me just see the Rashi, right?
42,000 years in the past.
Right. So therefore, if that case, if he would choose one of them, so since each one is only Darabanan, but if he wanted that one to be his wife, that would be a stronger marriage. That would be the one that that is really the real one that's Chal, and the Rabban will make it that one's the main marriage. Social pressure, I don't know. Anyway, right. So now, both of them are Rabban married. And he dies. So if you would do Yibum or Chlitza to the main one, so then there's a reason to pass to the other one. But this case, where it says either one of them, what's the problem? Yeah. The other one can never ignore your face, right? So we say, but so if we don't know, then the Yibum or Chlitza not chal, right? So why? What's the svar? If she's a katana, so eventually she's going to be a gedola, and therefore she'd be good. And right? At least she's an adult, right? She's someone who's fit for him, at least physically right now. But if he was a cheresh who was married to a chereshes or a katana, vaday b'chereshes nichala, for sure the chereshes would be more fit to him. The bas biyahi ubas minehi, right? And therefore, in that case, we would say that she is basically his main wife. And I said, no, I feel enough. And I say, no, even if he's a cheresh, also say a subject of which one he prefers. Now, Kate said, all right, this is now a very key line to today's daf in order to understand the next blot. Kate said, so now what do? We have these two marriages, deraban, and they're different styles. One is a katana, the other one is a chereshes. Amar Rav Chizda, Amar Rav. So what does the brother do? Remember, the one brother, he died. He was married to the two women, midrabanan, and now they both fall even to the brother. So Amarav, Kaines HaChareshas, he does Yibum with the Chareshas. Now remember, we said he can't do Chalitza with her, right? So he does Yibum with her, Umotzia beget, and then he divorces her. Viktana, and then so now he took care of her. Viktana, and then with the Viktana, Tamtin Ad Shitagdil the Tachlis. Wait till she becomes 12 and then do Chalitza. Right, not Yibum, Chalitza.
Well, once he took the Harashas with Hebrew, it would patter the katana anyway.
It would not. Why is that? Because they work differently. That's going to be the svara. We said in our Mishnah, if they were both katanas,
Even though they're tsaros.
yes, if they were both katanas, then the yibum chalitza of one or the other would pater the other one. If they're both chareshes, the yibum of one of them would pater the other one.
Okay.
If each one is if there's one katana, one chareshes, we see from our Mishnah that it says one does not pater the other one. It must be they don't work the same. And now we're about to make a diuk in the limit now. Amar Rav Chizda says Rav Chizda Shmamina Kesavi Rav. It must be the Rav holds, right? Let's hold cup. Chareshes Kenuya Umashiras. There which the Chareshes is acquired, right? It's only a partial. It's the yibum with her. The yibum with her, right? The marriage to her, right? Or the yibum to her was a partial yibum. In other words, it's not a full, complete removal of the zika. It was partial, right? So therefore, if he does yibum and then divorces her, right? Whatever zika there was, the 60% of zika there was, he removed the zika with that yibum and that divorce. Now, however, the katana, kanuya v'ena kanuya. The katana is either all or nothing. We just don't know, right? In other words, the katana is either there's full zika and she would fall to him, or there was no zika and therefore nothing really need to be done, and he did chalitza anyways, which doesn't hurt. So going back to the question 4, if he goes ahead and does the yibum with the chareshes, so we just said he took care of 60. It was 60%. So if it happened to be that the katana was really she does 100% fall to yibum, right? So then the yibum with the chareshes won't have removed the zika from the katana. So therefore, since they work differently, therefore you can't do both, and therefore according to Rav, the chareshes, because it's a partial, right? The chareshes is a partial yibum and or a partial zika, and the katana is a suffix as whether it was everything, it was full or nothing. That's the svar here.
What would happen in the case if he took the katana in and they taught her to say me?
He took the katana, right?
And the katana said
He does, but it might be that if he did the yibum with her, it was nothing.
It
could have been
doesn't
nothing.
patter the Harashas.
Well, that's what we said the halacha, right?
Right.
So now the Gemara says, "There's a chareshes kenuya ben kenuya," because if you would think that the chareshes is no, it's either all or nothing, and katana kenuya mushiras, and the katana was only a partial, right, yibum over there, right? Then it was only it was partial yibum. Amai kaines who might see beget, right? Why does he have to go ahead and marry her, right, and then divorce her, right? If you think the other way around, right? Tizev Gabe, Mimanav Shach. She should be able to stay with him. Mimanav Shach, the Harashas. Why? If we say the Harashas is fully Zika or not, so then he felt her. Vilav Knuyi, but if she doesn't fault him at all, then Hanachas Balma, she's only Nachas Balma. He just married a woman who there was no Zika, and therefore that wouldn't affect anything, right? So he should be able to stay with her. But we don't let him stay with her. So it must be, like we said earlier, that the Harashas is partial. And with a katana, it's suffix all or nothing. So why don't you say, so why does the katana have to stick around and wait till she's a gedela, right? Let her go ahead and live with him. So if she was, right, if she was somebody who was fit for Yibum. So then he took her in as Yamam, and he lab Kni, and she was not. Then Achrisa B'Yamli, then she's only somebody who's not. Sim Kain Chereshes B'Mai Tepa. If he goes ahead and takes her first, then with what will the Chereshes be? What will she be pater from? In other words, right? She needs the Yibum. She needs to go first because she needs the Yibum because you can't do Chalitza with her. So Rav Sheshes and Hachinami Mistaka. This is also logical to say. Like that, which Rav Chisa Amarav says. Why? Because we see the Tanya, we learn in the Brisa. It says Shnei Achim Nesun Shtei Achayos Yisamos. Right. So you have two brothers who are married to two ketanos. Right. Achayos Yisamos. We're talking about the case where the mothers married them off. Now, katana or right. Katana v'chareshes. Right, one was a katana, and the other was a chereshes. Meis balashel katana. If the husband of the katana was nifter, right? So meis balashel katana. Right. So chereshes yitzeh beget. Then the one who was the chereshes must go out with a get. The katana tamtin ad shetag devatichlitz. So she. Due to no fault of her own, her brother-in-law died. Now her husband has to divorce her, right? And the other one who falls to Yibum, he goes ahead and basically waits for her, and then does chalitza when she becomes a gadol. All right, that's that case. We'll soon see why. Now
the brother who has to divorce is Harashas.
Is Harashas, right? He has to divorce his Harashas in order to go ahead. To do chalitza to her sister when she gets old. All right. Now, if the husband of the chareshes dies, so katana yitzib get. Then the other one, the katana, goes out with a get. The chareshes is asur li'elam. Then the chareshes is asur li'elam. She can't go ahead and remarry. But if he was ba'aleha, right? He wasn't supposed to, but he was ba'aleha. Then he gives her a get and she's mutter. Now, right? If we say that we're talking about a case of, in other words, that the svara is when a charesh is a deaf mute, that her zika, her yibum is only partial. And katana kanuya ben kanuya, and the katana is either all or nothing. Because of this, if he indeed was Baal Chareshus, now he wasn't supposed to, right? But he was Baal Leha, right? Because the problem is that when she felt his Zika, she might have been an Ashes Achas Ishta, right? She might have been the sister, right? She was, if she fully fell, her sister was married to her Yavam, and he wasn't supposed to do a Yibum, right? But if he went ahead and he did Yibum anyways, so now he can give her a get, and she's mutter, right? Because if the katana was really married, then she would have been pater from achazisha. And he lav kunuyin, and her sister was never married to Shimon, then shaber miyabe. Then if her sister was never married, therefore she falls to yibum, and therefore as a chareshes, and he could do yibum with her. Right? Eliyamarta Chareshes Kanuya Bene Kanuya, Katana Kanuya Mashiras. But if you say the opposite, that a Chareshes is either all or nothing, and a Katana is only a partial, right, Yibum or Zika. So Kibal Chareshes, am I nice in a Gabutra? If he was Baal Chareshes, why would he be able to go ahead and give her a get and not matter? Havile Bia Psula, Ubia Psula like Patra. This would be a Bia Psula. We know Vadai that this Bia, right? Because because if there was partial marriage to the katana, so therefore this bia was a vadai bia puzzle, right? Because it was, she was partially her achos isha, and therefore it's a bia psula. And why in a bia psula doesn't pater anyone in the shuk, right? If the yavam does bia psula, as we saw earlier, right? Talking about a case of, let's say someone gives a get and then he does bia afterwards, so that doesn't free you, right? That's a bia psula. right? So Bia Psula doesn't work. So Gemara says, no, maybe it's according to the opinion of Mani, Rabbi Nechemia, there would be Bia Psula, but there's Chalitza. That even though you have a case of Bia Psula, such as, let's say, there were many brothers, one of the brothers did mimer, right, with the woman who fell to Yibum, and another brother chapped her up and did Yibum. So he did Bia Psula. That's still pater, sir, according to Rabbi Nechemia. You don't need Chalitza anymore. She's mutter l'shuk, right? The pater, sir. So maybe over here in this case, maybe you could say that it was Bia Psula. Maybe the katana is only a partial yibum or a partial marriage, and therefore we'll say that it works. So Rabbi Nechemia, let's look at the Seifa. Misha nasu ishtei yisamos. One person, right? Not two brothers. One person was married to two yisamos, right? Two girls that were married off. That's their mother. Katana. The Chereshes, right? One was a katana, and the other one was a Chereshes. Umeis, and he dies, and they both fall to the brother. Ba Yavam al katana, if the Yavam was Bal katana, the Chazu Bal Chereshes, and then he was also the Chereshes. Oh, Shbachiv al Chereshes, or another brother was Bal Chereshes, but the Bia with the katana was first, and then came the Bia with the Chereshes. Nesu Shteim Alav. Both of them, right, are usher because of that. Now, Ketzad Tekanasam. So what is the takana there? How do you fix it? Now, the svara is that they were co-wives, right? They were co-wives. But if he goes ahead and does yibum with the katana, and then he does yibum with the other one, so we'll soon see why the bia with the chareshes would answer the katana. So Ketzad Tekanasam, chareshes yetzi beget, the chareshes goes out with the get, the katana tamtin. So what should you do in that case? Chareshes yetzi beget, she goes out with the get, the katana tamtin ashtag davatichos. Wait till she gets older and there's klitza. If you say that this makes sense, in other words, you say the chareshes is partial zika, partial marriage, and the katana is suffix all or nothing. Therefore, the Rabbanan, right? This is the case of the Rabbanan, who say that chalitza is required, right? So mishum hachi tamtina because of that the bia, which wasn't supposed to be done earlier, wasn't good enough. They have to wait to go ahead and do chalitza. The dilma kadim ubal chareshes bereisha, right? Because if not, then perhaps the what's it called? Then the if that's the case, the dilma kadim ubayel chareshes bereisha. First, I have to go do bia with the chareshes first. Bia katana, bia psula, and therefore the bia katana would be a bia psula. Eliyamarta Rabbi Nechemia, bia psula patra. But according to Rabbi Nechemia, you would say it should be okay. So Ella shmamina rabbanan shmamina must be the rabbanan, and therefore, right? So we had the earlier the proof that we said originally that which we say that the zika and the yibum from a chareshes is a masheris, is a partial one. And that which we say by katana is we say that is either, it might be there, it might not be there. It's a suffix. And therefore, that's the reason why they are both treated differently. And Amar Rav Ashi, the Reisha Nami Shmamina the Rabbani, it says that also for the Reisha, you can also figure out that the Rabbani, the Ketani says there, Iba al Chareshes, Noisin la get Behutra. Right? If he was Ba on the Chareshes, then he gives her a get, and she's mutter to go ahead and marry on. But it doesn't say, right, if he was balakatana, that he gives her a get a hutra, right? So therefore, because why? Because in this case, right? Oh, what was that?
She's not a full marriage.
Right, not full marriage, and therefore the get wouldn't work, right? So therefore the get right, to get it right. So even for that case, in balakatana, right. So there's Imishim Halo Ari. It says maybe Charesh Delese Takanasa Teira. So therefore, in the case of the Charesh, maybe since there is no Takana completely, Katani Takatana the Isura, therefore I told you something with Isura. However, Katana is like Takanasa Teira, but Katana that has a way to go ahead and fix it. In other words, you can do Chalitza. You can't do Chalitza by a case of a Chareshes, right? That's never an option. So he has to be, the only way the option is to sort of give an advice to do a Bia Psula. But when it comes to a Katana, since these are Tekanasa Teira, Loitani Tekanasa Isura. Therefore, it didn't list the case of whether these Ba Katana, what he was supposed to, and give her a get. In other words, they only gave the advice what happens, right? If you do be with the Chareshas, then you have to go ahead and divorce her, but she's mutter. But it doesn't say that the Katana. The Katana, he could have done Bia and give her a get, right? Whatever Bia, whatever Yibum, whatever the Yibum that the Bia accomplishes, he can give her a get. But it didn't give you that advice, right? Why didn't it give you that advice? Because over there is a way to fix it for a Katana, i.e. to do Chalitza when she gets older, versus the Chareshas, where Chalitza is never an option. Fine. Mishnah. So, right. Mishnah says, now, very similar Mishnayos that we had earlier, so the Gemara is not necessarily going to go into it now. Misha Nasa the Shtei Yisaimas Katana, the person who was married to two Yisaimas Katana, Sumeis, and he dies. Uba Yavam Al Vishaina is Yavam his brother was Bal Vishaina. Bechazu Bal Shnia is Bal the other one. Oshabachi Bal Shnia, or his brother was Bal Shnia. Right, they were both Katanas. Low puzzles Rishaina does not passel the first one. In other words, the second one should not have gone and had to do it because they had the same type of marriage. They're both Katanas, right? So either they're both fully married or both not, and therefore you never do Yibum with both wives. So, but nevertheless, the second one is also, but the first one, it doesn't ruin it for the first one. He can remain with the first wife. Now, Katana B'Chareshes, if he had married to a Katana Chareshes, and Ba Yavam Al Katana, if the Yavam is Bal Katana, B'Chazar Ubal Chareshes. And then afterwards, he's Bal Chareshes, Sheba Achi Bal Chareshes, or his brother is Bal Chareshes, Pasel as a Katana. It passes the Katana because of a Gzeira of the opposite case, right? Because what's the case? Let's look at the next case, right? Pasel the Katana, because we want to say either one of these cases, if you're born the second one, you can't remain even with the first one. Why? Ba Yavam Al Chareshes, if the Yavam is Bal Chareshes. Now remember, the way we view these marriages, right? We view the Chareshes as partial, and the Katana is perhaps it's suffix all or nothing, right? So, but Yavam al Chareshes v'chazir bal Katana, Oshaba achiv al Katana, Pasal is the Chareshes. He passes the Chareshes, right? Why? Because perhaps the Katana was Knuya Kula. I'm just reading from Rashi. The Kina Chareshes is Mashiras, right? Because what happens if he's Bal Chareshes, right? He's only partial, right? But then he does real Yibum.
I still don't understand why Yibum with the Chareshus is only partial.
Because
It's Darabanan. Because the whole Kinyan is only Darabanan. She was only married Midrabanan. It wasn't a Doraisa Yibum.
it's not a very good marriage.
Right. So therefore that over there.
She couldn't.
She does that das. She does that das. Right, exactly. Right. So therefore it's looked at as that. Right.
Yeah.
So therefore, since in this case, it would, the Katana would passel the Chareshes. So therefore, the other case, we also say no good. Now, because the Chareshes, if he was married
The
to,
first one, right? He's born the Charesh at first.
right. In both cases, we say it passels the first one. Right. But the one is a Gzer because of the other.
Right.
Now, Pikachas Bechareshes, if the two wives were instead of a Katana and a Chareshes, you have Pikachas and a Chareshes. One was a full-fledged marriage, and the other one was a Derabana Chareshes. But Yavam Al Pikachas, if the Yavam goes ahead and has Yibum with the Pikachas, the regular wife, because Bala Chareshes and has Yibum, Shabach Bala Chareshes, Loi passes the Pikachas. It doesn't pass the Pikachas. But Yavam Chareshes, at first he has Yibum with the Chareshes, who's only Zika Derabana. But Chazu Bala Pikachas, then he goes ahead and has Yibum with the one who's the Raisa, Shabach Bala Pikachas, or one of the other brothers who Yibum with her. Passes the Chareshes. He passes the Chareshes. Because over here, that Vadai passes her because her Zika was only Midrabanan, and it comes in the brother or he himself and has a Yibum Deraisa, which would pass to the husband. Gedol of Katana, if you have a Gedol of Katana, so similar situation. If he's Balagadela because of Balakatana, that he's Balakatana, Oshabachi Balakatana, Loi passes the Gedela, doesn't pass the Gedela because her Zika or Yibum was Deraisa, he acquired her completely, then any Derabbanan thing that comes afterwards doesn't affect it. However, if the Yibum was Balakatana, because of Balakadela, and then he had Bia with the Gedela, Oshabachi Balakadela, or his brother had Bia with the Gedela to try and do Yibum, Pasul Sakdana, Pasul Sakdana, because it could have been that there was no Zika at all, and therefore he really acquired the second one, and therefore the first one is now puzzled to him because that was, that's her co-wife. And Rabbi Eliezer, no, we teach the katana to do miyun in this case, and there go ahead and marry the other one, the one who the bikachas. Rabbi Shmuel, halacha keRabbi Elazar, v'chein amar Rabbi Elazar. We said earlier, halacha keRabbi Elazar. So he said halacha is like Rabbi Elazar. Tzricha, we need to say halacha in both cases that we teach them to do miyum. If we have it only in this case, maybe only have the previous case we saw earlier. Over there, right? We wanted to fulfill a mitzvah yibum midaraisa, so we said there's two that fell. If she does miyun, then you can go ahead and perform the mitzvah of yibum midaraisa, right? But in this case, mitzvah yibum, right? There already was yibum in this case. Now he married one, right, and then the other. So you teach her to do miyun, right? So therefore, since it was done, maybe we're not going to do the mitzvah of yibum. We already did the mitzvah of yibum, so maybe we wouldn't teach to do miyun. So, but in the other case, if we had this case, mishum de gedola rami kame, right? Because over here, right, you could say that there was a gedola who fell to him. But in the other cases, when there's two derabbanans, there was a chareshes and there was a katana, and over there we say, okay, teach the katana to go ahead and do chalitza, right? Sorry, teach the katana to go ahead and do miyun, right? So in order to do yibum with the chareshes, there was no deraisa yibum. So therefore, tzricha, both cases to teach us that we want to go, we do go ahead and teach her to do the miyun. Fine. Now you
teach the katana to do the meal.
Right? And then her marriage was never chal.
Even though the meal,
brother, the guy died. Who died? Who died?
Well,
to uproot the original
No,
marriage.
he's not a brother. He's talking about the Yavam.
the yavam, she's doing the meal with the yavam, not with the original.
No, with the original one. So therefore, the only one falls to Eva.
No,
But the guy's dead.
That's what.
Yeah, you
That's right,
reject the marriage.
Guy's dead.
Right.
The guy's dead. So she you teach her to do miyun after the guy's dead. That's what I thought.
That's
Yeah, well,
So
it
that's
says,
the first one.
one second.
with the
Yeah.
Easiest
The guy
name
who's
there is
dead.
a dead guy.
Oshaba Chiba, right? Pasuk Dav, Im Ba Yavam Al Katana, V'Chazir Bal Gadayla, Oshaba Chiba Gadol, Pasuk Tana. Rabbi Eliezer Amir Melav Din Aktan Shetamayin Bo. Right? You don't do miyun on a zika. Who's she doing miyun to? Who's
with the brother of the dead guy.
but it's that she fell to Yibur and Chalitza to him.
Right.
So he's not marrying her, right? No, you're saying
She can't do meal
Only with
with
somebody
the
in
yavam.
here.
Is
What?
that what you're saying? She cannot do meal.
no,
with
the
yavam?
miyun, the way the miyun works is she does miyun. It was like she was never married to the first guy.
Even though he's dead.
Yeah.
So she can just walk away, do meal.
Really, the miyun holds if he passed away.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a
that's
real thing.
that's what
No,
I.
because the miyun, he passed away and she does miyun.
And she does meal.
According to the opinion of Ula cited by the Gemara Bava on 107b, we saw a week ago, when a minor performs miyun toward a yavam, in effect, she annuls retroactively her marriage with the deceased brother.
Wow.
So she's performing miyun to uproot that marriage, and it comes out retroactively. Yeah, we said last week, and it turns out she never falls. So therefore, there is no deceit.
Because there's a difference between
Right.
being an almana
Right.
and then with mimayenes or a grusha. So she'd rather be a almana.
Let's go to another mission. Next mission, also similar case we've seen. Yavam katan sheba yavama katan. So he's a katan. He's at least the age of 9 years old, where his bia is shmei bia, and he's bal yavama, also katana, who's at least the age of 3. Yagdilu zeim zeh, right? They grow up with one another, and they stay, right? They can go ahead and right. So they grow up together, right? If he wants to divorce her, right, and he can't divorce her until after they become gedayla. Now, if his yavam is ba al yavama gedayla, If he's Baal Yavam Gedola, then Tagdi Lenu, right? Then they go ahead and so he's kind of her, right? And Tagdi Lenu, right? They grow up together, right? So Shiloh over here, but she raises him basically, right? He's still a child. He's only the age of 9 or 10. Now, Hayavama She'amra. Now you have a Yavama that says the guy took her in. Okay, we'll do Yibum. Lo nivalt. Said I never did. Right, we never had relations. You know what? You had your time, you had the opportunity, 30 days, you didn't do anything, right? You weren't kind of her. Doesn't work. Now, Rashi points out, which the Gemara is going to say, which we'll get to tomorrow, but Rashi points out that usually what Rashi does is to help the understanding now, even though later on, so it says, I'll just look at the Rashi for a second. Lo nivalti lo, she says, I didn't have relations with them, the get yavamim yaitze mitachas yada, right? And she has, right, a get with her, right? She has basically a get that was basically for saying that he divorced me. He was not with me, right? Right? In other words, he's saying, yeah, no, I was boil her, and therefore the get is sufficient. Right? So kaifin alachlites, right? We force him to do chalitza dehina menas to atlas and yaimin muki inish and nafshim go. Now, if he just gave her a get and he never did yibum or chalitza, that wouldn't work for her to be able to remarry, right? But for him, he's saying, no, I married her, and right, and I don't have to do chalitza anymore, right? So if we say if it's only after 30 days, we request of him to go ahead and do it, but we don't force him. However, when he admits that he was not boil her, he has to go ahead and do chalitza with her. And if a woman hates her brother-in-law, she makes a neder from her brother-in-law, right? While she's married, right? Doesn't foresee her husband's untimely death, and then he dies, but she has these nedarim in place. She has these nedarim in place. Go ahead and do chalitza because she takes certain nedarim, vows from her not to benefit from him, and so on and so forth. Le'achar misa. However, if I will not get any benefit from him. I will not get any benefit from him. So therefore, he can't feed her. He can't, give her money. He can't clothe her. Anything, right? He can't have relations with her. Everything. Liachar Mrs. Baila. If she made the nether, the husband dies, or her husband dies, and then all of a sudden she realizes, I'm going to follow Yibum to this, this guy I don't like. Then she makes a nether. Then we request him to go ahead. We don't force him. Hey, can you just do chalitza and get this over with, make it easier? However, if she did it for that purpose, only to do chalitza, then let's say she did it when he was alive, right? Because she was getting the poison ready to feed her husband, right? And she made the nether, right? Just in case they ever fall to Yibum, I make this nether now, right? Once again, we also request for him to go ahead and to do chalitza and not Yibum. So just a couple lines. Let me just see. Yeah, just a couple lines. So Leimas needs to be like Rameir. Let's say it's like Rameir. The Tanya. Let's say our mission is now like Rameir because Rameir says, as we start off, a Yavam, a Katan, a Ktana, go ahead and do Yibam and go ahead and marry, and then if you want to divorce her, wait till you guys grow up. So the question, no, if you think Rav Meir, Kim Rav Meir, Gedaylo, Lakatin, Ktana, Legado, the Chaiminaya, Saru. Only one of them is, in other words, that it's midaraisa. In other words, it's not really necessarily deraisa. About Katan, about Katana, but Tarvaya, but if it's both the same, then I wouldn't. It says over there, if he's a katan and she's a gedola, then they grow up together, right? So then you do that case. So Gemara says no. Rabbi Chanina Chuzai. So Bashani, when he was ready, ball out, right? When he did it already, so okay, you can live with her. I've hogged Tadiwena Kamar. It says over there that she, she raises them. They go up together. The whole bia ubias deasiri, right? So they live together. Each and every bia should be aser. So rather we must say that the Mishnah is like Rav Meir. So so how can he do Yibum anyways? The pasuk says, in order to fulfill his brother's name, he can't have children at this point. So it says Yavam Yivolad, the extra lashon, even if he's not ready yet. And Rav Amar, even without this, so Mika needed the hash the Sira Lay Labas Shari, right? But about anybody, right? When she falls to Yibum, right? But she's usher, but later on she mutter, right? Even it's later on, but he can't do it now. You can't say that he's eventually come into it now, but now it doesn't work because then it should be usher. So Gemara says, okay, maybe it means that he's taka pater if he's a cotton. So Gemara says, well, the pasuk says, when brothers live together, even if they're one day, as long as the two brothers are alive at the same time, she falls to even to the brother. So you can't say that, hey, if the child can't have children yet, you can't, have a child in his brother's name at the moment when she falls, that she's parted from Yibum. So therefore, in this case, we'll say, no, that's not true. And it must be that even since eventually that they would be able to have children, so too now she falls to Yibum, and if he does Bala, then he lives with her until he becomes Gadol, and he can divorce her if he so chooses. I will stop here to that. Everybody.